My name's Mark. I'm 35 and make my living fixing busted laptops in this quiet little Connecticut town where secrets don't last long because everybody knows everyone else's business. Claire, my wife, she's an executive assistant over at Morrison & Associates, a big-name law firm downtown. She's always had that fire in her, always climbing the corporate ladder like her heels were designed for the climb. You will be completely shocked by what happened in the end. That Tuesday morning in our kitchen, with that evidence clutched in my hand, I felt this cold, sharp weight settle in my chest. Most guys in my shoes might have stormed into her office, raised hell, and demanded answers. But I'm not most guys. I've always been the careful type, the one who reads every instruction manual and keeps his backups in triplicate. So instead of going off the rails, I started planning. That night, while she was in the shower, I unscrewed the cap on that bottle like a watchmaker cracking open a delicate timepiece. I poured half of it down the drain and replaced it with a harmless but messy prank mixture, neon green dye that stains everything it touches to make a linebacker cry like he'd been chopping onions in a wind tunnel. A protective wrapper didn't escape my attention either. I tampered just enough to make things awkward, nothing dangerous, just enough to cause embarrassment if discovered unless you knew to look. I muttered under my breath as I worked, half mad scientist, half betrayed husband. When Claire stepped out wrapped in a towel, she looked sweet and innocent, like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, casual as ever. "Same as always," I answered, studying her face for a flicker of guilt. "Nothing." If acting were an Olympic sport, she'd have brought home gold. Over dinner she dropped the usual line about working late. "Big case coming up. Gallagher wants the whole team pulling an all-nighter at the conference center in Hartford. Thomas Gallagher, her boss. The slick, silver-haired type. Divorced, drives a Porsche, walks around like his JD is a license to chase married women." "Which conference center?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I twirled my spaghetti. "The Hampton Suites by the interstate. You know the one." "Yeah, I knew it. Rooms by the hour if you knew who to ask." Later that night, while Claire slept like a baby beside me, probably dreaming about her big case, I slipped a GPS tracker under her car seat. Technology is a beautiful thing when you know how to use it. 3 days later, my phone buzzed. Claire's car was sitting in the Hampton Suites lot at 3 in the afternoon, even though she'd sworn she was tied up downtown with clients. I drove over, parked behind a landscaping truck, and waited. 30 minutes later she came out of room 184, adjusting the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. Right behind her was Gallagher. They looked far too close to be just colleagues, but the lipstick on the collar kind. My stomach turned when I noticed she was wearing clothes she once swore she'd never touch, the kind she kept hidden away. My phone camera caught everything, faces clear as day, time stamps, GPS coordinates. But snapshots weren't enough. I wanted the full picture. So the next week I called in sick, packed a thermos of coffee, and started tailing them. Nothing fancy, just a man with binoculars and patience. Tuesday and Thursday became their routine. Claire would text me about overtime, then slip away to meet him at the Hampton Suites. On Thursday, I booked the room right beneath theirs. The place looked high-class on the outside, but the walls were thin enough to carry every word. Gallagher's voice drifted down through the ceiling. "Her husband doesn't have a clue. Claire says he spends more time with computers than her. Poor guy probably thinks romance is just fixing her laptop." Then came Claire's laugh, sharp and grating. "Mark's sweet, but he's predictable. Boring, really. Biggest thrill he's given me lately? A new password manager." Gallagher chuckled. "What he doesn't know won't hurt him." He couldn't have been more wrong. For the next hour, I sat there listening as they tore me apart, my job, my habits, even my choice in breakfast cereal. Every insult was another nail in the coffin of whatever was left between us. When they finally strutted out, him looking smug, her glowing like she'd just won a prize, I turned my focus to his shiny Porsche under the security light. Didn't touch it. Didn't need to. I was playing a longer game. Claire came home later clutching her stomach. Must have eaten something bad, she groaned, making trip after trip to the bathroom. Poor baby, I said, handing her ginger ale, hiding my satisfaction. The very next morning, my buddy from the gym called. Man, you'll never believe this. That lawyer Gallagher had some kind of blowout at his country club lunch yesterday. Right there at the table, sweating, doubled over, paramedics called in. Word is food poisoning. I nearly spat out my coffee trying not to laugh. Phase 1 was underway. 2 weeks later, Claire came through our front door pale as a ghost. She sat me down at the kitchen table, her hands shaking. "Mark, we need to talk," she whispered. Something happened. My pulse kicked up, but I kept my face calm. "What kind of something?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "There was an incident at the hotel today." Her voice came out in a whisper so faint I almost had to lean in to catch it. "Thomas and we were meeting, and something went horribly wrong." "What kind of wrong?" I asked, even though I'd already pieced it together. Claire's face crumpled. We both had to rush out in embarrassment, covered in green stains we couldn't wash off. People were laughing, phones out, recording everything. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep a straight face. "Chemical reaction, huh?" "The doctor," she said, "called it industrial dye mixed with irritants. Thomas was convinced somebody had sabotaged them. He wanted to call the cops, maybe even hire a private investigator." "That's awful," I said, piling on the fake concern. "Are you okay? Need to go back to the hospital?" She shook her head, tears running down her cheeks. "I already went. They gave me a cream for the burning, but the green, they said it might take weeks to fade." That evening, while Claire soaked in an oatmeal bath trying to calm the irritation, my phone buzzed. It was my cousin Brian, who runs security at the Hampton Suites. "Mark, you're not gonna believe this," he whispered. "Craziest thing today. 2 people in room 184 had some kind of medical emergency. Paramedics said they'd never seen anything like it, both covered head to toe in bright green dye, screaming about burning." "That's wild," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "Here's the kicker," Brian continued. "It happened in the middle of what was obviously an affair. Big shot lawyer, married woman. They were trying to explain to paramedics why they were in a hotel room together, in their underwear, covered in mystery chemicals. Guests were filming. This thing's already going viral. Hashtags like online, people were already joking about it, turning the incident into a trending meme." I hung up and allowed myself a small smile. Phase 2 was running smoother than I'd hoped. The next morning Claire stepped out of our bedroom looking like some kind of radioactive Christmas elf. The green dye had set overnight, blotchy patterns her makeup couldn't touch. Her eyes were red and swollen from the pepper spray residue. "I can't go to work like this," she wailed, staring at herself in the hallway mirror. "Everyone will see. Everyone will ask questions." "Maybe call in sick," I suggested lightly. "Say you had an allergic reaction." My phone rang just then. Gallagher's name flashed across the screen. Claire lunged for it, but I picked up first. "Mark, this is Thomas Gallagher from Claire's firm." His voice was hoarse, probably from screaming. "We need to talk. There's been a serious incident involving your wife." "Oh?" I replied, putting on my best innocent tone. "What kind of incident?" "Someone sabotaged us. We were poisoned. This was an attack, and I have reason to believe you might be involved." Claire was shaking her head, mouthing "Don't say anything." "That's a big accusation, Mr. Gallagher," I said calmly. "Are you telling me someone tried to hurt my wife?" Your wife and I were conducting business yesterday when we were both exposed to some kind of chemical tool. We're talking about attack charges here. Business? I let the word hang. What kind of business requires you and my wife to be in a hotel room together, Mr. Gallagher? Silence. Claire's face went ghost white under the green tint. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, Gallagher finally said, lawyer instincts kicking in too late. Actually, I don't, I replied cheerfully. But I'd be happy to discuss it. Maybe we should meet somewhere public, with witnesses. I'm sure my lawyer would love to hear about the business you've been conducting with my wife. Your lawyer? Oh yes. See, I've been documenting some interesting patterns in Claire's behavior lately. Unexplained absences, strange purchases, hotel receipts, I'm sure it's all innocent. But in situations like this, legal representation seems wise. The line went quiet except for his ragged breathing. I'm hanging up now, he muttered. But this isn't over. No, I agreed. I don't think it is. When I set the phone down, Claire stared at me with a mix of horror and dawning realization. You did this, she whispered. You knew about us. You planned this? Knew about what? I asked, feigning confusion. Don't play dumb, Mark. You sabotaged you put something in she couldn't even finish. I put something in what, Claire? Your work supplies. Your business materials. I was enjoying myself more than I probably should have. Or are you talking about the personal lubricant I found in your purse? The one sitting next to the box of protective wrapper you supposedly can't use? Her face fell apart. It's not what you think. Really? Because what I think is my wife's been sleeping with her boss for months, lying to my face, spending our money on hotel rooms where she mocks my marriage and my manhood. That's not true. Should we call the Hampton Suites about their security footage? Or maybe check your phone records for all those work-related texts you've been sending Gallagher? Claire dropped into a kitchen chair, the green dye making her look like some kind of defeated leprechaun. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Long enough to get creative. She looked up at me, eyes rimmed red. What do you want? I sat across from her at the table. I want you to understand something. For months you and Gallagher have been playing games with my life, laughing at me, planning around me, treating me like some pathetic fool who couldn't see what was happening in his own marriage. Mark. I'm not finished. You turned our home into your personal command center. Even our bed became your planning table for secret meetups. And our money, the money we built together, you used it to bankroll your little romantic adventures. And through all of that, every single morning, you stared straight into my eyes and lied without blinking. By then she was crying, actual green-tinged tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. It just happened. Thomas was charming. You were always working, and I felt alone. Stop, I said, raising my hand. Enough with the excuses. You made choices, grown-up choices. Now you get to live with grown-up consequences. What kind of consequences? She asked. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Gallagher again. Don't answer it, Claire begged. Please, Mark. He's panicking. He thinks you're going to ruin his career. Well, isn't that something, I said, letting it roll over to voicemail. He's worried about his career but not about wrecking my marriage. The voicemail lasted a full 3 minutes, Gallagher threatening lawsuits, demanding meetings, sounding like a man whose world was about to collapse. I put it on speaker so Claire could hear every frantic word. He's scared, she muttered when it ended. He should be, I replied. That afternoon, while Claire hid in the bedroom trying every home remedy she could find to scrub away the green stain, Gallagher showed up at my door. He looked like an enraged, off-brand Hulk, green dye on his face, neck, and hands, his pricey suit rumpled and ruined. "We need to talk," he said through clenched teeth. "Absolutely," I told him, stepping outside and shutting the door behind me. I wanted this talk out in the open where the neighbors could watch. "You poisoned us," he spat. "I don't know how, but I know it was you." "Poisoned you?" I echoed, frowning. "Mr. Gallagher, you don't look so good. Are you sure you're okay?" "Cut the crap, Mark. You found out about the affair and you rigged something. I want to know what it was and how you did it." I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Sorry, could you repeat that? You mentioned an affair?" His eyes went wide as he realized what he'd just admitted. "Stop recording." "This is my property, Mr. Gallagher," I said evenly. "I have every right to record here. Now, you were saying something about an affair with my wife?" "You know perfectly well," he growled. "Actually, I don't know anything for sure," I said, nodding toward the small camera mounted under the porch eaves. "But you just confessed to an affair with Claire, on my security camera. Care to elaborate?" His green face started turning purple. "You can't use that recording," he barked. "Oh, but I can. Connecticut's a one-party consent state, and since you're standing on my property, my rights are even clearer. This conversation is completely legal." He glanced around and finally noticed the neighbors watching from their yards and windows. His voice dropped to a whisper. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" I pretended to think. "Let's see. I want my wife to stop lying. I want her to quit spending our money on her little adventures. I want you to stop sneaking around with married women in cheap hotels. And I want both of you to finally understand that choices have consequences." This was an attack, Gallagher blurted. "A chemical attack. I could have you arrested." "For what exactly?" I asked. "You still haven't said what I supposedly did. More importantly, you still haven't explained what you were doing in a hotel room with my wife when this attack happened." He was boxed in and knew it. Any complaint he filed would force him to admit to the affair, explain why he'd been in that hotel room, and reveal how he ended up covered in green dye. "I want you to stay away from my wife," he finally muttered. "Funny," I said. "I was about to say the same thing to you." He spun around and stomped off to his Porsche, looking ridiculous behind the wheel with his green-streaked skin. As he drove off, I gave a small wave to Mrs. Chen from next door. She'd been watching the whole scene from her garden. "Everything okay, Mark?" she called. "Just fine, Mrs. Chen." "Just fine," I answered. That evening, Claire faced me head-on. She stood in the living room, still green but wearing her best attempt at righteous anger. "Thomas says you're trying to destroy his career," she declared. "He says you're going to send that recording to his firm." "Am I?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "Are you?" she pressed. "Depends." "On what?" "On how much more lying you plan to do." She sank onto our couch, the same couch she'd probably used to plan her secret rendezvous. "What do you want to know?" she asked quietly. "Everything," I said. "When it started, how long it's been going on, how much you've spent, who else knows?" "Everything." For the next 2 hours, Claire confessed. It had begun 6 months earlier at the firm's Christmas party. Gallagher was recently divorced, charming, and, according to her, paying attention in ways I wasn't. What started as flirty small talk turned into lunch meetings, then coffee dates, then afternoon hotel visits. It was never about love, she insisted. It was just excitement. Adventure. Something different. "Something different from your boring husband and your boring marriage?" I asked. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. I heard you tell Gallagher exactly that at the hotel. Remember? When you said how predictable and boring I am?" Her face flushed beneath the green. "You were listening?" I was collecting evidence, I said. For the divorce. The word hung there like a blade. Divorce, she whispered. Did you think there was another option? That I'd just pretend this never happened? Go back to being the clueless husband while you and Gallagher laughed behind my back? We could try counseling, she offered weakly. Marriage therapy. People work through affairs all the time. People work through affairs when both of them actually want to save the marriage, I said quietly. When someone truly regrets their actions and wants to change, you can feel it. But looking at Claire that night, all I saw was a woman sorry she'd been caught, not sorry for what she'd done. She was crying again, and I felt nothing. The person sitting on my couch might have looked like my wife, but she wasn't my wife anymore. It felt like a stranger had been wearing Claire's face while quietly tearing down everything we'd built together. I made a mistake, she sobbed. A terrible mistake, but it's over now. Thomas is too scared to keep it going. We can start fresh. I shook my head. There's no fresh start from this, Claire. You didn't make a mistake, I told her. You made hundreds of decisions over 6 months. Every lie you told, every hotel meetup, every text, every time you looked me straight in the eye and pretended nothing was happening, those weren't accidents. Those were choices. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Claire begged. It's probably Thomas. He's been calling all day, worried about his reputation. I picked it up anyway and hit speaker. Mark, this is Thomas, a nervous voice said. Listen, we need to work something out. This whole situation is getting out of control. You think so? I said, keeping my tone light. I'm prepared to offer you compensation for your discretion. We can all walk away quietly. Claire's eyes went wide. Even she hadn't expected Gallagher to try buying his way out. Compensation? I asked. What exactly are we talking about? $20,000. Cash. For your silence about the affair. I glanced at Claire. Her face had gone paper white. Her lover was trying to buy his way out of the mess they'd created. That's generous, I said. But I've got a counteroffer. I'm listening. You resign from your law firm, leave town, and never contact my wife again. In return, I don't send the recording of this call to the Connecticut Bar Association's Ethics Committee. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious. See, Thomas, I did some digging. This isn't your first fling with a subordinate, is it? There was that paralegal 3 years ago, and the court reporter before that. I bet the Bar Association would love to hear about a pattern of predatory behavior toward employees. Silence stretched on the line. You're blackmailing me, he finally said. I'm giving you a choice, I replied. The same kind of choice you gave me when you decided to seduce my wife. The difference is I'm being upfront about it. This is extortion. No, this is called consequences. Take my offer, or explain to your partners why their senior associate is starring in a viral video titled "Lawyer Gets Green with Envy." Your call. The line went dead. Claire stared at me, a flicker of awe in her eyes. I never knew you could be so cold, so calculating, she whispered. You're right, I said. You didn't know me at all. You only knew the version of me who paid the bills, fixed your computer, and pretended not to notice when you came home smelling like another man's cologne. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 6 months being made a fool of by the 2 people I trusted most. What's not fair is coming home to a wife who couldn't wait to run off to her lover. What's not fair is working overtime to pay for the hotel rooms where you trashed our marriage. My phone rang again, Claire's friend Emily this time. Don't answer, Claire said quickly. She doesn't know anything. I answered anyway. Hi, Emily. Mark, thank God. I've been trying to reach Claire all day. Is everything okay? There are these wild videos online about some chemical accident at a hotel, and people swear it looks like Claire. I handed the phone to Claire. Your friend wants to chat. Listening to that call was painful. Claire stumbled through excuses, piling on lies, trying desperately to spin the story. Emily wasn't buying it. Claire, honey, the whole town is talking, Emily said, her voice loud enough for me to hear. The video shows you and Thomas Gallagher leaving a hotel room covered in some green stuff, barely dressed. What am I supposed to tell people? Tell them it was a work accident, Claire pleaded. We were reviewing documents and there was a chemical spill. In a hotel room at 3 in the afternoon? Come on, Claire. I'm your friend, but I'm not stupid. After Claire finally hung up, she turned to me, panic written all over her face. Emily's going to tell everyone, she said. By tomorrow the whole town will know. They already know, I said. Social media works fast in small towns. My career is ruined. My reputation's destroyed. My friends won't talk to me. Probably, I agreed. That's what happens when you make spectacularly bad choices in public. You did this on purpose, she snapped. You wanted me humiliated. I wanted you to face consequences. That's different. Claire began pacing the living room like a trapped animal. What if I told you I was pregnant? I looked up from my laptop. Are you? What if I was? Are you pregnant, Claire? I could be. We haven't been careful lately. When you say we, are you talking about us or you and Gallagher? Her face flushed crimson. Us. You and me. Your baby. I opened my calendar. Interesting. According to my records, we haven't been intimate since March 15th. It's May 23rd. So either you're claiming to be 2 months pregnant and just noticing, or you're lying. Again. Claire's shoulders sagged. It could be yours. Could be? That's not how paternity works, Claire. Either the baby is mine, it's Gallagher's, or there is no baby. Which is it? There's no baby, she whispered. I just thought maybe if you believed I was pregnant, you'd want to work things out. So you lied. Again. Even now, with everything collapsing, you're still lying to me. I'm desperate, Mark. I don't know what else to do. You could try telling the truth. Just once. For novelty's sake. That night, Claire slept in the guest room while I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, taking in the wreckage of my marriage. It should have hurt more. The fact that it didn't probably says everything about how dead our relationship was long before I found that bottle of lubricant in her purse. The next morning brought its own surprises. Sure enough, Gallagher had stepped down from his law firm, blaming it on health issues. The local paper slipped in a little blurb about it, saying he was packing up and heading out of town to chase opportunities somewhere else. Claire came down the stairs looking rough, like she hadn't slept in days. The green tint in her hair was starting to fade, but what was left had turned into this sickly yellow that somehow looked worse than the bright green. Thomas is gone, she said flatly. She told me he'd texted her that morning. Said he was leaving Connecticut. Good for him, I muttered. According to him, he couldn't take the heat anymore, the embarrassment, the questions from his law partners, the sideways looks. Honestly, it made sense. Then Claire hesitated, like she was bracing herself. He also said, I'm on my own now. That he never promised me anything beyond what we already had. And I looked at her and thought, what exactly did you two have? Cheap hotel rooms, rushed lunches, late-night texts. She let out this bitter laugh. 6 months of my marriage for hotel rooms and text messages. I asked her if it was worth it. She met my eyes, hollow and tired. What do you think? Here's what I thought. She'd traded a real marriage for some teenage fantasy. She'd convinced herself it was exciting, romantic even, when really it was just sleazy and selfish. And the only reason she was sorry now was because she'd been caught. I said as much. If I hadn't pulled my little chemistry stunt, would you have stopped? Would you have confessed? Or would you still be sneaking around behind my back? She didn't answer, and that silence was answer enough. By Monday, I had the divorce papers filed. Claire didn't fight me on anything. She couldn't afford an attorney, and she didn't have a leg to stand on anyway. I kept the house, the bank account, both cars. She got stuck with her student loans and maxed out credit cards. About 6 months later, I was at Murphy's Tavern with my buddy Brian, watching a basketball game. First time in years I felt like I could just sit back and enjoy myself. Brian sipped his beer and asked, "Ever wonder what happened to Gallagher?" "Not really," I said, and I meant it. "Don't care." Word was he'd landed in Florida, chasing ambulances in insurance law. A long fall from the shiny world of corporate litigation. I filed that fact away, but honestly, I couldn't have cared less. Brian pressed on. "And Claire? What about her?" I shrugged. "Heard she's at some call center outside Hartford, living in an apartment with paper-thin walls and noisy neighbors." "People make choices," I added, and left it at that. "You did what you had to do," Brian said quietly. "No," I corrected him. "I did what they forced me to do. They wrote the rules, I just played by them." Right then, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Claire. "Mark, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you something. I finally realize what I lost when I lost you. Thomas was never going to leave his world for me, never going to choose me over his reputation. I gave up 8 years of marriage for 6 months of lies. I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't deserve it, but I want you to know I finally understand what I had, and what I destroyed. I hope you find someone who appreciates you the way I should have." I read it once and deleted it without answering. See, some guys go out and hire private investigators when they want revenge. Others make a big dramatic scene, key cars, or spread gossip. Me? I leaned into science. A little chemistry, a lot of patience, and a simple belief: the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's letting them destroy themselves. I drained the rest of my beer, paid my tab, and stepped out into the cool night air. Behind me, Murphy's Tavern hummed with laughter and small-town chatter, life rolling on like it always does. Tomorrow might bring another text from Claire, or some fresh gossip about Gallagher's downfall. There'd probably be more drama, more attempts to drag me back into their mess. But tonight? Tonight, I was free. Free from their lies, their games, their poison. Free to start over and build a life on honesty instead of deception. I drove home to a quiet house, my house, where no one was plotting betrayals over breakfast, where no one was sneaking around behind my back, where I could finally sleep without wondering who my wife was really with. Some people might say I went too far, that turning someone green and wrecking a career was excessive payback for an affair. But those people never spent months being lied to, gaslit, and humiliated. They never stumbled across proof of betrayal when they were just trying to find their car keys. They never overheard their spouse mocking their shortcomings with a lover. All I did was give Claire and Gallagher the same thing they gave me: consequences. Mine just happened to come with a splash of bright green, for emphasis. And you know what? I haven't lost a wink of sleep over it. The best part? Around here, whenever someone spots a neon green shirt or a bottle of food coloring, they laugh about the green affair. Claire and Gallagher turned into the punchline of a small-town cautionary tale, proof that secrets don't last long when everyone knows everyone. Meanwhile, I came out of it with my home, my sanity, and a weird sort of fame as the guy who turned adultery into performance art. Not everyone gets to be a local legend for their divorce story. Some people settle for closure. Me? I went for color. And let me tell you, brilliant green was the perfect choice.